Well, welcome everybody. This is Joshua Rushing with the Calvary Community Church podcast, and I'm super excited today. We've got a very special guest with us, Olivia Buckles, and we're going to just take a few minutes just to talk a little bit about her, what the Lord's doing in her, and a little bit about worship and musical worship and sung worship and why it's so important in the life of the believer.
Mm.
So, welcome, Olivia. I'm glad you're here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so I was just thinking today, Olivia, I've known you since you were probably in grade school.
Mm.
In fact, my family the other day, or I say the other day, it was about a year or so ago, we were watching mine and Mandy's wedding video, and
Yeah.
our girls, it was during our anniversary, and our girls wanted to watch the wedding video, and we saw this little girl, this little grade school girl, kind of running around. And my daughter's like, "Who is that?" And my wife and I were like, "I have no idea who that is." And you turned around, and you were just a little grade school, and we were like, "That's Olivia Buckles." Like, oh my goodness. So I've known you for a long time. That shows how old I am. Uh, but yeah, so I know a little bit about you, Olivia. But for those who don't, just take a few minutes just to share, just introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing right now? Where are you? And kind of how are you in terms of ministry? What are you doing? So just take a few minutes to share with us.
Yeah. Well, I live in Kansas City, Missouri now. I grew up at Calvary. Parents have gone to Calvary for years, and I moved out to Kansas City in 2014 to join the International House of Prayer after I graduated high school, and went through university here, and I've been on staff since then. I'm one of the worship leaders in the evening section of the 24/7 House of Prayer. And so been involved with our leadership team here and taught songwriting for a bit at the university, and kind of have had my hands in a few different pots since moving here, but predominantly House of Prayer, worship leading, and yeah.
And you've also done some recording and stuff, right? You have some couple
Yeah.
projects out, or at least been involved on some other projects as well. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah. In 2015, a friend of mine who was starting his career in production and studio engineering. He now has his own studio down the road, but he approached me and was like, "Hey, I know you're a songwriter and would you want to ever record? I'll do it for you for free." And I was like, that sounds like a blessing from heaven. Let's do it. And so I had a handful of songs that I wrote when I was in like high school, and we just went to town, and that was kind of my first time really figuring out, like, how do you record? What is this world of studio that I've never done before? And so recorded just a little 4-song EP. I think it's 4. I don't remember. Maybe there might be 5 songs in there. I don't know.
A bonus track.
Bonus track. Recorded it, and did just this little peewee releasing these songs that were mostly just recorded in a bedroom, and then it ended up jumping to the number 3 on the Christian chart.
Wow.
It's the funniest thing that I think has ever happened to me. I'm like, who is the judge of these things? Like, we need to talk to some people. But so I have that was my first ever release of anything, and then since then I put out a handful of singles. I'm actually in the middle of finishing up the mixing and mastering of a single that I've been recording, and so that'll hopefully come out sometime this year.
So we're getting breaking news right here, like in real time. Is that it? We're just getting breaking news, a new single coming out from Olivia Buckles. All right. You heard it here first, folks.
So that's exciting, and then I have a few videos on a YouTube channel of just extended times of worship, and so that's about all as far as my music is concerned. That's out and about, but hopefully gonna do more in the future. So we'll see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Which kind of brings me to my next point, because again, I know that you're a talented songwriter, great musician. And so one of my passions is music and how music is used in worship. We know worship is so much more than music, but music is such a vital
Yeah.
part of the in the life of the believer. Sung worship, music, singing, songwriting, that kind of thing. Just take a couple of minutes and share about like what music kind of means to you, but also why is musical worship or sung worship so important in the life of the believer?
Yeah. I love these questions. I think for me, I was just at a home group with the worship leaders for our evening section, and we've started going through our testimony and or sharing our testimonies with one another. And as I was sharing mine, I was realizing just how much music has been a part of my life since I was really little. And I would say most humans could say that. Like you look at a baby, you hold a baby, and if you start beatboxing, the baby is gonna start smiling, dancing. Like there's something in us that like cannot help but enjoy music. I've never met somebody that doesn't like music unless they've just been in that world for too long and they might be a little burnt out. But
Mm.
most humans just love music. It's in us. There's something in us that responds differently. Um, I've heard it said multiple times. You might remember, um, the gist of a sermon that's preached, but you will remember the songs that were sung. You'll
Mm.
go humming, "How great is our God!" Like there's just something in us that will latch on to melody, and uh, for me, I was always trying to get my hands on an instrument, and whether I was good or not so good, singing, trying to have singing contests with my brothers, and just wanting that, like, oh, come on, let's have a jam sesh, and growing up, Hannah, I don't know if you remember the Kipp family, Hannah Kipp, Joel Kipp, and
Hmm.
Paul and Marcia. Um, the Paul owned a music store at one time out in Tomball, and so anytime I was hanging out with their family, it was like let's go to the shop and let's jam, let's like whatever jam means. We're over there like we will. Where are you? Like
Yeah, jamming just means turn it up loud and make noise.
I know, like smoke on the water, and that's it.
There you go.
But
Just no stairway. Just no stairway, right?
yeah, no, not quite that advanced. Um, but yeah, so there's something about um playing an instrument, but I think so cool about the fact that we were all literally born with an instrument inside of our bodies.
Mm.
Like the fact that we all have a voice that's unique to us. Like your voice sounds different than my voice. My voice might sound similar to my talking voice, speaking voice might sound similar to my mom's voice a little bit, and little things that I say here and there. But when she sings, it'll sound totally different than when I sing. It's a
Hmm.
different facet. It's a different color. It's a different beauty, whatever. And I think just even the fact that God surrounds himself with music just shows even how near it is to his heart.
Yeah.
That forever he will always be surrounded by music. That even just makes me I've been thinking these past couple days, I've been listening to old Integrity, Hosanna,
Mm.
Vineyard Worship, and Celebrate Jesus, Celebrate, and having yes, and have dance parties in my house by myself. I probably look like an absolute ridiculous person, but I just took a moment yesterday and paused and was like, I have so much joy and fun in my heart that it'll be like this on
Mm.
steroids in the kingdom. And like the music and the choirs that will be like the ensembles that'll be put together, it'll just endless possibilities of music. And I was just like, oh. And I don't live in that space. So the fact that I even like had that, like, wow, little tear, drops
Yeah.
on me. Is like, that is so precious. And then, you go about your day. But I think just the gift that we all have vocal cords, and
And even
uh
more so than that, if you think about it, we actually, all musical instruments, except for computers these days, but all actual physical musical instruments, they fall into three categories. It's the wind, it's percussion, and it's strings. You either
mm-hmm,
have to blow on it, hit it, or pluck it
yeah,
to make a sound. And we actually have all three of those in our body. So we have lungs that are filled with air. That's just the wind instrument of our lungs. They blow
mm-hmm.
across our vocal cords, which are basically just fleshy strings that are hanging down, and we have
They hit,
hands and feet
vibrate.
to clap and that percussion. So we really have the all musical instruments inside of our body in a sense.
I
Like,
literally have never that way. So
yeah.
that
So yeah, it blows my mind. And then that's the reason God's throne is surrounded by music, is because it's
Mhm.
surrounded by animated musical instruments. I mean, yeah.
Instruments with
Yeah, so it's awesome. So I love that, and I love, for me, when people ask me stuff about why music is so important, and most of the time it comes from non-musicians. Again, I normally call everyone's a musician because you are literally made out of musical instruments. But
right.
people who don't maybe play an instrument, or they say, well, I don't really sing a lot, and I normally get that question, well, why do you think music is so important? And a lot of times I'll just say, I don't know, but I know it's important to God because He surrounds Himself with it forever. That's
Yeah.
good enough for me, and so
Yep.
so I don't say that just because I'm a musician or a singer. I say that because I love God and I want to be into the things that He's into,
Mhm.
and He surrounds Himself with music. One day maybe we can ask Him, what is it
Why?
about music that moves you so much? It doesn't make sense. It's almost foolish to think about, like, singing. Like, what? Like, what's the big deal about that? But there's something about that moves Him, unlike anything else that I've found.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I even think about when David was setting up the tabernacle and the Levites, and just that whole gang of priests that were, and like that the ark was in their midst, like that they were able to be that close,
Mm.
when beforehand that was like so not the case.
Yeah.
And one little thing wrong and you're a goner.
You're toast.
You're literally toast. And so just that they were able to be in the presence of God like that, but in the context of worship and
Mm.
song, is like such a key, a play on words, the keys of David, such a key to the heart of God. And
Yeah.
um I think I remember being really young, and when you're young and you get embarrassed, or like somebody picks on you, you get your feelings hurt, and then you kind of need to go off and you sulk, and then you come back and join the party later. But I remember multiple times I would go to my room in like a state of sulking, or kind of like just trying to comfort myself, and I would just sing these rhyming songs to the Lord about how I was feeling.
Mm.
And no one ever taught me how to do that. And I don't even say that to be like toot toot. Wow, I had the key, and no one, not in an arrogant. I'm more going. I look back going, where the heck did I get that from?
Mm.
Like, there was something in me that singing helped me process the pains of my heart.
Mm.
And there's something about a melody, and yeah, there's something about a melody that will unlock your heart like nothing else will.
Yeah.
And I just uh yeah, it's like when someone passes away, and everyone gathers, amazing grace,
Mm.
how, and there's like a camaraderie, a unity that comes around when we sing together, that will open up. It just opens up your heart for healing. It opens up your heart to one another. I love, there's so many different cultures around the world that families gather around music,
Mm.
and that's just how they relate to one another. And there's so much connection around it. It's just so cool to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what a gift.
And it's such a unifying thing, like you said, but it's also not a surprise that the enemy uses music as one of the very things that pulls us apart.
Yeah.
the worship wars, I like the hymns, I like the modern stuff, or it's too loud, it's
Mhm.
too soft. It seems like music is one of the things in the church that seems to divide us. And
I don't like
yeah, not another Matt Redman song, or that kind of thing. And it's like, which, sorry, Matt, if I don't know if you're going to listen to this, but yeah, we love your songs, but I just use it as an example. But yeah, it seems to be one of the things that divides us right now. And I think that's because the enemy understands, if anybody understands, it's Satan.
Yeah.
He was the musical covering cherub. The Bible describes him as the covering cherub. Like, if anybody knows how music moves God's heart, it's
It's
him,
just
you know.
great.
And I think about it like this. I mean, he was the covering cherub. Depending on how you interpret some scriptures, it says that he had musical instruments built into his body, some believe,
Mhm.
um, and so I don't think it's an accident that we do now too. So, when Satan fell and he was removed from heaven, and so God's response, in a sense, and I know this may not be perfect theological, whatever, but it's just the way I imagine it in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
The covering cherub is no longer there to cover the throne.
Mhm.
And so God reaches down and picks up some dirt and blows in it.
Yeah.
And he says, well, now I'm going to enthrone myself on their praises. And so
Yeah.
it's almost like we
Wow.
took the job, you know what I mean? Like, took Satan's or Lucifer's job that he had
Mhm.
to cover the throne in worship. And so I think it makes him jealous. I think, as far as Satan,
Oh,
he hates it. He hates music, and he hates song, but he'll use it, to reach the generations, and um, which brings me to another thing about, I know you guys, you being at IHOP, and a lot of people look at it as a young person's movement. We know it's more than that. It is really a
yeah.
multi-generational thing, but there's a real emphasis on the next generation, and how
Yeah.
I'm being stirred right now with how much worship and music really reaches down through the generations, and God is raising up a new young generation of singers and musicians.
For
I heard a story this week. I don't know how true it is, but the principle and the learning from the story is the same. Have you ever, and I'm sure you probably have, you being from the South, how our great grandmas and our grandmas and our moms always taught us not to put our elbows on the table?
Yeah.
Right? That's just something you don't do, right? I mean, it was like, no, you don't put your elbows on the table. Are you a, sinner or something? Like, we don't, that's not, you don't put your elbows on the table. Well, like, where did that come from? Like, why was that such a moral, such a standard of behavior? And this guy I was listening to, Ray Hughes. I don't know if you're familiar with
I
Ray
love,
Hughes.
love
Ray
Ray.
Ray is one of my worship heroes. I think he is
Ugh.
just, I mean, Ray is the best. But it was Ray, and Ray was talking about that, and he said, where did this come from? From generation to generation to generation, this idea that you don't put your elbows on the table.
Mhm.
And then he said, Da Vinci, when Da Vinci painted
This is
the,
one of my favorite stories. Keep going. Oh, keep
yeah,
going.
so he said when Da Vinci painted the Last Supper, the only person pictured as having their elbows on the table was Judas.
Yeah.
And so now, whether this is actually where that came from or not, I don't know. But what the principle is, an artist depicted something in his
Uh,
generation, and it has affected the actions, the motivations, the almost moral code of
mhm.
generations, future generations, because an artist created something and it shaped generations. And it's so stunning to me. Again, I don't know if the elbow on the table thing really started from Da Vinci or not, but it makes sense. But
Mhm.
whether that's really true or not, the idea is the same. The art, music, a song, a lyric, a melody, um,
Mm.
you're not just creating something for this generation to sing, you're creating the language, and you're creating a conduit for future generations to connect with God in a fresh way. And so just talk about that for a little bit, just because I know you have a real heart for young people, and compared to me, you are a young person, but but
Compared, I am a young person to me, so there we go.
yeah. But yeah, just talk about a little bit about, like, worship right now. What's God stirring in your heart related to worship? What's on your mind and in your spirit when it comes to worship and this emerging generation?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's funny. I was in a meeting the other day, and you're probably familiar with Mike Bickle getting on little tangents of stories,
All
and
too
he's
familiar, yes.
a storyteller, but it's
His
like
tangents have tangents. And
yeah, you'll be talking about one thing, and Mike gets going on the whole meeting has been hijacked, and now we are talking about World War III and the history of something else. But we're in this meeting, and Mike starts going off about kind of how the worship movements were shifting from, I think he talked about Calvary Chapel, and which I think is like Lonnie Frisbee's era, Jesus People. He's somewhere in California probably. But he just kind of went down the line. You got Vineyard and John Wimber and these guys, and then Hillsong, Bethel, IHOP falls with that.
Hosanna Integrity that you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
And he was talking about how the theme of the music was shifting as time went on, and as the Lord was breathing on different things in these different communities of believers, and how it was like really affecting a generation of worship, and how the songs went from very like, we will be victorious and there's victory in the blood, and this battle belongs to the Lord, and how in one sweep it was like things started shifting to Jesus, I love you, I love you, I love you, and my heart will follow wholly after you. And how these songs just turned into this like intimacy. You love me, I love you, and I love you because you love me. And it was this whole like alabaster jar, Mary at his feet, like
David Roos, the "Let Me Know the Kisses of Your Mouth." Like, whoa, that was so out there when it first came out.
And for these songs to start to open people's hearts and minds to relate to God in a totally different way. And I walked out of that meeting being like, oh, I'm just so grateful. Thinking about actually growing up at Calvary, and that being the just the culture of worship. And even as I was sharing my story today, I was just like that. I never was unaware of the intimacy with that intimacy with God concept, and watching the community at Calvary living that out and hungering and longing to be close to Jesus. And sorry, I went on a little bunny trail to get back to your question though.
You've been around Mike too much. You've been around Mike too much. The tangent.
Tangents upon tangents. Something that really strikes me about, I'll say, called Gen Z. I almost was a Gen Z, and then I wasn't. Like the year before, right after, I was born. But
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm an X-Millennial, actually. So I'm in between Gen X and the Millennials. They've actually created tangent. They've created a little micro generation called X-Millennials, and it's just a short little thing, and I happen to fit right in there. So yeah, I'm with you on I'm a tweener.
When I look at how social media and TikTok is kind of like, that is like their platforms for what they're learning, how they're communicating with one another, and this huge wave of young people that are like, I don't know the correct percentages, but it feels like the majority of this generation are all wanting to be musicians. And whether they're actually learning an instrument, like I'm thinking a guitar or drums, everything's become so technologically advanced. These kids have you buy an iPod or an iPad, it comes with GarageBand on it.
Right.
And so you're like, wow, I didn't know that. I was like, here, I got like a synthesizer and some like sick beats, and I'm a DJ now. I didn't even know it, and these and they're putting their stuff out all over TikTok. And some of these like 15-year-olds are blowing up because they're figuring out how to create their own studio in their bedroom,
Mm.
and they are writing these hits, like they're really good. And kind of becoming little one-hit wonders in and of themselves. But
Mm.
I'm and when I step back, I'm like, this feels different than maybe before in previous generations. And I'm not a history buff, and I don't even want to pretend like I am. But the way that music gets introduced to different generations, like you said, there's a passing down through generation to generation. There's something about this gen that is so like, we don't want fake, we just want the real thing. Just give us the real thing. And they're almost like, of course, in the young, like arrogant, like, challenge me, I dare you to challenge me kind of a thing. But also it's like, let's be artists, let's create. And it's like this whole group of people that are like, everything they do is like, how can I be different? How can I create something? And how can I make it weird looking? And now it's a trend, and it's kind of this like these culture shapers that seems like there's a lot of like, I don't know, for lack of better words, it just leadership coming from them in like the, let's take it by the horns and make it our own kind of a thing. And so when I think of that and kind of that attitude of that generation, I'm like, God knows what he's doing in these ones that he's formed for this time, that even just right now, what we're living in right now. And I'm intrigued and excited for the ones that will come into the kingdom and will start, the ones that are going to start to learn how to prophesy on their instrument and learn how to sing the Bible back to God. And because the whole word is prophetic. You want a prophetic word, go open the Bible. You're not going to miss it, Yeah. And just you want to be a prophetic person, go sing the Bible. That's pretty dang prophetic,
Yes.
And like what it would be for this generation to get that weapon, really the sword in their hand, and start exercising that,
for sure.
Wielding that weapon in the spirit. And I'm probably talking in circles, but I just
No, that's so good. I mean, I and I forget who says it. I use it as a quote in so many of my classes that I teach, but I don't remember right now who said it. But somebody back 100 or 2 years ago said, give me the songwriters, and I care not who writes the laws. Talks about in a nation, give me the songwriters in a nation, I don't care who writes the laws. In other words, I know, like, if I'm going to shape a nation, if I'm going to shape a generation, give me the artists. And and again, not that laws aren't important, and we love God's people getting involved in government, and I love all that, but I think what he was trying to say was that very thing that you were just saying. That what will it look like when a generation really stands, this is who I am, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do. And when they grab a hold, and not just music, but just all of the arts in general.
all the
Yeah, and see where it goes, and what will that look like when a nation, when a generation in a nation begins to really stand in that place of identity and creates things of beauty. In fact, Ray Hughes, I've got it around here somewhere. I know this is not professional, but I have this book around here. Oh, here it is. I'm going to plug this book. Ray, if you listen to this, you need to come to my church and sing. But this is a book by Ray Hughes. It's called 107 Things I Forgot to Say the Last Time I Talked About Worship, Creativity, and Music. It's kind of a long title, but
sounds like a great title though.
But it's basically like a little devotional. It's just like two or three sentences, but it's like 107 things, little sentences by Ray about worship and creativity. And it just, like, I read one sentence and I can spend, a couple of weeks just trying to ponder, oh my goodness, that's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. And then I flip the page and I read the next one. I'm like, no, that's the most powerful thing I've ever heard. I just go on and on.
Never.
but he talks about that. There's a quote in here I want to read as we wrap up. He says, "Worship songwriters, when you write a worship song, you are not writing next year's popular lyrics. You are creating the next generation's language and understanding of God."
Mm.
And that is just such a powerful plumb line for me as a songwriter. And I know you're a songwriter. Um, yeah, we're reaching generations. We're shaping a generation through song. And
Yeah.
so I just appreciate all the time and energy and work, because I know it's hard work writing and recording
Yeah.
and arranging and
All of it.
improving your craft, working on your voice, and warm ups, all the things that come along with it. I know it's really hard work. It's fun, it's rewarding, but it is hard. And so I just appreciate all that you do in writing your songs and leading the bride of Christ in worship to help her fall more in love with Jesus every time. And
Mm.
it's such a high calling. It's such a beautiful thing that you do, that and all of worship leaders. It again, I think we are the job replacement for Lucifer,
Yeah.
in that, like we talked about earlier. Wow, that is such a high calling, when you think about what we do. Again, not just worship leaders, but all believers, but specifically those who are called in a real practical way to help lead
Yeah.
and to help encourage
Mm.
worship in the hearts of believers. And you do such a good job of that. So I just wanted to honor you on this and say, way to go. We're proud of you. You're doing amazing. Keep going. Keep writing those songs. We'll go from 3 on the charts to 2 or to number 1 on the charts. And not that that really matters ultimately to you, I
No.
know, but we would all like to see it. Go, way to go, Olivia. But in fact, if you think about it, the first corporate worship leader that I found in the scripture was a female. The first
Mm.
corporate worship leader in the world was a woman. When they came out of
Yeah.
Egypt and they came across the sea, Moses began to sing, "I will sing unto the Lord." He said, "I will do it. I'll sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and the rider thrown into the sea." But then it switches, and Miriam
Yeah.
goes around, and it says she went around to others and got them to sing. And her
Mhm.
song was, "Sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously."
Mm.
So Moses sang a personal worship song to the Lord. Miriam took it
Mary
and
goes around.
got the instruments and got people singing it together corporately. So from my understanding of reading of scripture, the first corporate worship leader was a female. So you're in great company. And but again, just thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad to have this time to chat with you. But before we go, you're going to be here at Calvary Community Church in Houston
Yeah.
coming up in April. Tell us a little bit about that. April 1st and April 2nd. We're having what we're calling an Impact Weekend. So just touch briefly on what you're going to be doing in Calvary on that weekend.
Yeah. So, or is it the 21st?
Yeah. What did I say?
I think you said the first and second. Sorry.
April.
No,
Yeah.
I'm like, I get the dates right.
Yeah, me too. No, it's so the no, that was the women's conference I was telling you about. We have a women's conference coming up, by the way. That's on April 1st. No, the weekend, the Impact Weekend is April 22nd through the 23rd. So
There.
we will probably end up editing that out of the podcast. But in case we don't, I've said the wrong dates at first. But yeah, it's the 22nd and 23rd here in Houston. So what are you going to be doing that weekend here?
Yeah, so Friday night, we'll be having just a night of worship from 7 to 9 p.m. And we might go into a time of, hey, are there anybody sick in their body that needs healing? Or oh man, the Lord just really feels like he's highlighting this in our community or just even in the nation. Like, let's gather. We might go into a small group prayer, but just wanting to gather together and just seek the Lord and give him the praise that he's worthy of, and
Yeah.
worship together. So that'll be Friday night. And then Saturday, I'll lead again Saturday morning. And then they'll go into a breakout session with some of the leaders, I believe. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah,
there'll
and
be,
we got some fun stuff for that day, and this is part of us celebrating our 40th anniversary here at Calvary Community Church, and so We thought it'd be fun to have you come down and lead with us. And we've got some other things that we're going to do that weekend. And you'll also be here at Calvary that Sunday morning
Yeah.
as well. So that would be the 24th. I better get the date right this time.
And
Yes, Sunday the 24th, you'll also be leading worship here at Calvary. And it's just going to be a great weekend. We're looking forward to having you here. And again, so thankful that you would join us for a little podcast today.
so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us here on the podcast, the Calvary Community Church podcast, and hope to have many more of these coming soon, and hope maybe to have Olivia come on and we can talk about some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Blessings, and we'll talk to you later.
Sweet. Bye-bye.